Maybe.
Maybe.
There we go. We're on air. It is Thursday, March 17th, and we're going to do a design call with everybody here, which is really exciting. So, yay. Thanks all for coming. That's the wrong agenda. Here we go. All right. So, we are progressing with changes to backdropcms.org. We've been building stuff, Darius, in your absence that we're going to need reviews on, but that's fine.
Cool.
I figured it's probably easier for you to do a design review of something that's already there than to have to start from scratch. So
it is, and I've been busy with Badcamp too, so that works out.
Perfect. So what we have now is our blog news section, which I think went up around the beginning of the year. It's totally fine, but it's maybe not in line with the aesthetic of the rest of the site. So that's the page /news, and then the individual news posts as well. And we have been getting some feedback in the issue queue that maybe we shouldn't be calling that section news if it contains blog posts, because people feel like I'm writing something but it's not news. Maybe we should rename the section, but I think naming things is really hard. So
what's the difference between a blog post and a news post?
Well, if it's something that's not relevant to a specific point in time, then is it really news? It's not new, and it's still going to be relevant a year from now.
What would be an example of that?
Like a how-to article, or a showcase.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So just having some kind of, if we're going to be soliciting everybody in the Backdrop community to write blog posts and publish them on our blog, we want to make them feel like whatever they have to contribute is valid. And I feel like if we put it in a section that maybe is mislabeled, that might be, I don't know, a deterrent to some people where they're like, I don't have anything that's news. But it's like, no, we want everything.
Yeah, interesting.
So just kind of food for thought. And I thought, the first suggestion was just rename the whole section blog, but it also contains stuff like these meetings, we put the videos in the sidebar so people can see what we've been talking about lately. It's got a list of upcoming events. It's just kind of a whole bunch of stuff we've jumbled together into this section called news. So I don't know if there's a better name for that.
How about blog and then have a news tag?
So we have tags. And we've definitely been using them. I think maybe there's one post that doesn't have tags on it, one or two. But yeah, anything that is newsy, we've been tagging with announcement. And then anything that's we put our releases in there, and they're tagged with the releases, and then we can put tutorials, and we can definitely use tags.
I think it's all technically a blog, right? And then it's the tags that differentiate it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think telling people to go to our blog to find an upcoming list of conferences might be a little weird.
I don't think so.
That's
it's a web log. It's a log. A log of whatever.
What do these words mean?
I think it's generic enough for tagging to take care of the rest.
Okay.
That's my 2 cents.
All right. Well, I'll let you take a look at it and see what you think, and then if changing the name to blog makes everyone happy, I'm totally fine to do that.
Cool.
Okay. And then so the event listing itself, right now we're just collecting the name of a conference, the date, and a link to its website. I was thinking it might also be nice to add a location. So if we put a location collection tool on there, then someday in the future, if we had a gazillion events happening, people could search for what's going on in their location. But since we don't have a gazillion events going on right now, I felt that was less urgent, so I left it off.
What kind of events are there?
So right now, there are a list of camps or conferences where people are going to be talking about Backdrop. So it's mostly Drupal events, but it'll also include things like the Nonprofit Developer Summit or CiviCerum, CiviCon, right? So just places where people can go to hear more about Backdrop. Long term, I expect that once Drupal events become primarily Drupal 8 focused, Backdrop will be ready to have its own events as well. And so then we'll be able to have bar nights or backdrop camps or backdrop
camp
as well. Drop camp.
Drop camp.
Drop camp. I have the Drop Camp Twitter account, so I hope that'll work for a name.
Right.
We'll see. So yeah, right now it's just kind of like wherever people are talking about Backdrop. So that's up. If you go to the news/blog section, you can find a list there. And then we've also made it so that anybody who has an account on backdropcms.org can add their own. So we should keep an eye on that and make sure we don't get any clever trolls over there. But I think for the most part, that'll be fine. And then the next section is the showcase, and this is something that I really can't wait to get up because it will help adoption if people can see that other people are adopting. And so I went through the 3 websites that were recommended. WordPress has a great showcase site. Drupal has 2. There's one on Drupal.org, and there's one on Drupal.com. Or no, it's Aqueous. It's the showcase.drupal site, I think. And then there is the awards site that Wes recommended. And I went through and did kind of a comparison of the types of information that were collected about each item to create like content buckets that we want to collect. And there's a lot of stuff like in Drupal, they collect like, was it Drupal 6 or Drupal 7 or Drupal 8? With Backdrop, obviously, we only have Backdrop 1, but it might be interesting to collect that information for the future. So I didn't know how people felt about that. I mean, it could be that if we decide to add that in the future, we can just auto-populate that field with answers for stuff in the past. But it could be interesting. There, on both the award site and the WordPress site, there was a rating field. So they had people reviewing the sites and giving them ratings, which I thought was interesting. I'm not sure that's something that we want to do, but it was like, okay, I guess that's something people find valuable. And then on Drupal in particular, they highlighted community contributions as well. So if like the White House wrote a link module for WYSIWYG, they were able to highlight that right on that page. So I thought that would be something that was really great in terms of like rewarding people for contributing to the community, and I think that's healthy, but it's going to be trickier to do that on Backdrop because they might have contributions that don't have full releases, and then where do they link those to? Like it's not going to be an autocomplete field if it's not there, or I don't know, maybe we could make that be one of the requirements or something, but just food for thought. So there's a bunch of stuff in here that I think we might want to consider doing, but maybe we should take that offline and have a conversation in that issue queue. Like, do we want to reference, like, the companies involved? That was something that was really important in Drupal because we wanted to highlight who did all of the great work to make sure people got credit. But then I thought there was also other things we could do, like if we have all of these companies as organizations on our site, we could also reference, like, who are you using for hosting? But I thought, like, are there, like, security implications in that? If you're like, oh, yeah, I'm hosting on, you know, Pantheon, and I know that they're running an old version of PHP, I don't know. I'm assuming there won't be, because any hosting provider that's happy enough to list themselves on the website would probably take care of whatever issues are involved, but an interesting thought, anyway. So yeah, I guess what we should do, I'll go through in the issue and make a list of things that I think that we should include, and then we should have a conversation about whether there's value in those things or not, and then either pare down or add anything that might be missing. So where we are with that. All right, other things we're working on that we probably will build without a design is the service provider listing itself. That'll also need kind of a content bucket thought to see what kind of information we want to provide for each. I know the Drupal.org company profile page is a little bit crazy because not only do they use that for service providers, but they also use it for anyone who's contributed. Like in a comment, you can say who you're working for to give them credit for the work that you're doing, and that's the same company or organization reference. So when you're filling out, like, this is my client information, it asks, like, what kinds of hosting do they provide? Do they offer Drupal training? You're like, no, it's the client. So I'm not sure we want to do that. Same thing. I was thinking that for our purposes, we would do only services provider listing by itself. And if we ever want to add other organizations, we could do a different kind. So Andy asked if we were waiting for references to add this feature. I think there's definitely, yeah, I think before we launch anything that requires references, even the user profile right now has a mentors field, or we want to add a mentors field. We're going to wait for Backdrop 1.4 before we add that. I think that we can let people add service providers now because we aren't adding the thing that needs to reference them yet. And so that way we'll get people adding a bunch of content before we need to reference it, so that when the reference field does show up, there will be content in there to reference. So that's kind of my thought on that. And again, same thing with showcases. Like, people can have things in the showcase that maybe aren't missing those fields until after 1.4. But I'm not necessarily convinced we'll get all of this done before 1.4. Anyway, a lot of stuff on our plate. But yeah, so that's kind of my plan right now, is we're leaving off the reference fields, and we'll add those after 1.4. So another incentive to get them done for 1.4. Okay, we also have some follow-ups on the modules, themes, and layouts pages. Darius, you might take a look at what happened to the modules page too, if you're curious. We had some debate around how to handle links and buttons to other pages, and so I made some quick changes that I thought solved some problems, but we should probably get your eyes on them again and make sure it's not going over the top. And then
the modules landing?
Yeah, just like all the links were just kind of light blue, and now they're buttons.
Oh, they're huge.
Yeah.
Boy. Well, how come they're buttons now?
So there were a couple of issues. First one, in the original, there were two links and they were really close together. And so people were clicking the wrong one by accident and confused about which one they wanted to click. And so I separated them spatially on the page by putting one on the right and one on the left. And then I tried to separate them visually by making one a link and one a button. But I think I gave weight to like an inordinate amount of weight to one or the other. So then I made them both buttons, but then I made like square corners and rounded corners because I wanted a visual distinction between like which button you would click. So now they're huge.
Yeah,
and
it's a bit much. It's a bit much.
So
I would say one should be a button and one should be a link, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I started with, but trying to figure out which one has visual precedent.
Well, download, right? It's all about downloading.
Well, that's what I thought too, but the feedback was like that would assume that you know what you want. And if we're trying to make this just as usable for a new user, they won't know they want that module until they've read the information on the other page.
How much trouble were people really having with the two links? I mean, do we know for sure that was not working for everyone?
We don't have a huge sample size, and we don't have feedback from everyone who's using the page. But I think like separating them spatially is the most important thing. Separating them visually is maybe less important. We could just go back to making them both links and see what kind of feedback we get on that. Like, if people know, like, if I want to download, I go to the right, and I want more info, I go to the left, that might be enough.
Maybe? Yeah, I don't know. What if you put download next to the actual title?
It could work, too.
Oh. Interesting. Okay.
And then we have been doing a bunch of development lately on integrating all of the other stuff we need from project module to get our module page done, which is good. I'm not sure we have everything we need, but I added like one thing we needed, and then Nate added like 4 other things we needed into the project module views integration. So it would be good to revisit that and see if we can get like the GitHub links and stuff added to the individual module pages. So I think we're making some progress, which is good. Progress is always good. Then we've also gotten some feedback that the themes and layouts pages are not super useful, and we know that because we copied the modules page design and didn't implement the themes page design initially. So it would probably be a good time to take the themes page design and actually build it out. And we have gotten some feedback from people who want to help with our site too. So that might be a good task to hand off to someone new and say, here's the design and here's the page we have. Like, build a new view, make sure we can pull in the images. I don't think we're pulling images over from GitHub right now. So might be some technical challenges along with that as well. Or I don't know if we can directly link to the image from somewhere. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So we have some work to do there, and that might be a good first task for someone new. We also, yeah, I guess the layouts page too. I'm not sure. Do we have a design for the layouts, find layouts page yet? Or are we going to use the themes page design? I'm not sure we have a design for that.
No, just the themes.
Yeah. Okay. So that might be something too. Again, it'll be, I think, less of an issue after 1.4 because people will have, hopefully, a whole bunch more layouts in core to choose from. So I'm not sure that's a super high priority. I think getting the themes sorted would be but more important. And some of these other things, like our showcase section, is probably more important. All right, so we have a new tag in the backdropcms.org issue queue. I guess it's not that new anymore, specifically for marketing, so it's audience marketing. So if we have people who want to help us with our marketing, that's definitely something a lot of us as developers are not very good at. We could definitely use help from the larger community there. It includes a whole bunch of stuff from creating design assets to updating Wikipedia pages with the fact that Backdrop CMS exists. And then everything in between, like writing content for our blog or helping us get newsletters out on time, which we are notoriously bad at. So if anyone is watching this video and trying to figure out where they could be useful, we can always use more marketing folks. So specifically for this meeting, the branding assets issue is the one where we wanted background images for Facebook and Twitter and Google+. That's the only one we've really got on here as specifically design focused that we'd love to get some work done. We had somebody create, well, we've had a bunch of feedback since we opened the issue. Recently we've had one new suggestion with, I'm working on a whole bunch more, but then I got really busy. So as is common in the open source world, I think we're probably ready if anyone else wants to take that over. If we want more people, we could use more help there. So that's all. And then other things we're working on, Backdrop itself. Yay. So 1.4 is currently scheduled for May 15th. That is now 2 months away. And there's a whole bunch of design-focused stuff we want to get into the next version of Backdrop. Most notably, we want to use a new front-end theme, so one that is clean and crisp and beautiful and people can launch their websites with. I know, Wes, you've been doing a ton of work on that. Do you have any more updates for us on that?
Kind of. I'm working on the 360 gallery site and using the theme that we're thinking about as the base theme. I actually got some quite a few updates to basis, but I haven't pushed them back to the repo yet.
Okay.
Yeah, this week's mid-camp, and I'm in Chicago now, so a little busy right now, so hopefully next week I'll get back in the swing and actually have the repo updated and get some more work in for it.
Okay, that's great. And Darius, I'm not sure if it was last week or maybe the week before, whenever we had the meeting where Nate and I weren't here, Wes showed off a demo of the theme that he'd been designing and working on for Backdrop, and it looked really good. And I think the only feedback we had was it would be good to get Darius to look at this too, just so we make sure we're not doing anything that's not in line with our general aesthetic. But the plan, there it is if you want to see it. There should be photos in the link he just put in the Hangout. But yeah, I thought it looked really good. It was a great start, and it'll go well with all of our other plans for 1.4, like adding a full bleed image out of the box and stuff like that too. So It's a great start, and I'm also super excited to see how it works out as a base theme too. So thanks for working on
Woohoo!
that project too.
Awesome.
All right. We also are trying to get a new set of layouts in. This is also a little tricksy because the original suggestion was to take all of the Radix layouts and just put them in core. But we decided to kind of take a step back and do that a little bit more slowly and carefully because we need to try and figure out what kind of grid system we want to use, if we want to use Bootstrap or not, and what kind of markup changes we want to make. Like if our current core layouts need to be changed at all, how do we handle that? If we're going to leave them alone, do we provide an upgrade path if people want to change them? I don't think so. Do we mark them as hidden and so that new sites don't get them but old sites do? There's just like some kind of technical questions you need to figure out in terms of how to organize all of that. Wes, did you use any of Bootstrap in your new theme? No.
Not right now, and I'm just messing around at this point. So that I haven't used Bootstrap doesn't mean anything yet.
Okay.
So I'm trying to figure out what it's like, if we just kind of do our own thing and what that feels like. And then I've used Bootstrap before. I know what that's like, and I don't have any problem with it. So it just kind of depends. So yeah, I don't know.
That might be another issue we should just open in the queue with like needs feedback. Would be like, how do people feel about using Bootstrap? I kind of feel both ways about it. I feel like number one, there are a bunch of people in the world who already know how to use Bootstrap, and introducing a system that is kind of universally known will be to our benefit, because then anybody who knows how to work with Bootstrap in theory could carry that knowledge over into working with Backdrop. So if we're looking at expanding our audience to people who do use other tools, that would be to our advantage. At the same time, there's a lot of stuff in Bootstrap that I feel like is probably not necessary for most sites. And so I wonder how much of that we want to include or don't want to include, and then if we decide not to include some significant amount of it, is that going to be contrary to the everybody already knows how to use it, because now it's not there anymore and they have to add it anyway.
Well, I'm thinking even if we're like, okay, Bootstrap's not quite right, I would probably use a CSS naming convention that's pretty similar, because it's pretty in line with what we have now. And I don't think we'd use all of Bootstrap. I think Bootstrap's modular, where you can say like, I only want the layouts and the this and that and the other thing. And I think people are pretty used to that. I don't know that everyone's used to using all of Bootstrap all the time. So I feel like the grids is the most important thing that people are probably used to, and that's definitely something if we don't use it verbatim, then we're going to do something similar from the user perspective who's not writing CSS, essentially. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm messing around with the idea of using a lot of flexbox.
Do it.
Huh?
Do it.
Yeah, I'm feeling comfortable right now. I kind of want to see how other people react to it, and if it's a good idea. I think it's definitely sturdier. Like it's less likely to have layout bugs.
I think it's fantastic.
Yep. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
Oh, and I do want to make changes to the core themes or layouts, just to add just like Radix has a div around each row, so that people can do color bands that reach side to side but have the layout still be like and that's not even, that wouldn't be something that would break. It shouldn't break, knock on wood, anyone's site, because that extra div wouldn't have any styles. It's just there for people who want to do a certain type of thing. So I don't know. We can talk about that later, though.
Okay. All right. So there's also a handful of user experience issues that carried over from Backdrop 1.3 that we maybe didn't get done. And I noticed there's a ton of new ones that came in just this week, particularly around blocks and layouts, which I think Mike brought up as well. Blocks and layouts is what kind of sets us apart from all of the other CMSs right now. So it would be good to kind of focus on getting that workflow down for people so that they can see really the power of Backdrop in that tool. So I think we should take a look at those and see how many of those we can get done, cleaned up. And we might definitely need some like user experience experts and redesigns of various interfaces in order to get that going. So go ahead and check the Backdrop issue queue. We have a milestone for 1.4 if you're interested in seeing what we're working on. And a bunch of those issues are tagged with UX for user experience. All right. There's also a tag and issue queue for all issues related to design. So anything where we're like, oh yeah, this is going to need a redesign, we try and tag. Of course, not everything gets tagged, but try and make a good list of them. So if you're particularly interested in working on design issues, you can go ahead and dig through that queue and see if there's something there you want to help with. All right, the only other thing on our agenda is to talk about the Human Interface Guidelines document. This is something that's been in the Backdrop Ops repository for a long time. We had an initial surge of activity on it, and then our wonderful contributor got real busy. But it would be a great place to document user interface patterns that we use in Backdrop so that core can adhere to those patterns and use them correctly and consistently, and then Contrib would have a good model to figure out when we should be using vertical tabs versus field sets versus drop buttons versus drop down menus, whatever it is we decide to do, just something that so we have some documentation. I think so far we have an outline. I don't think there's actually any documentation there. So it'd be good if we could get that updated. Mike also mentioned recently that it might be good to put a follow-up task associated with core commits. So if we add or fix something that we feel is against our human interface guidelines, there's a follow-up issue there that is update the human interface guidelines with the use of this element and when it should be used and when it shouldn't be used, or how it should be used, or just something that people can refer to in the future. So if anyone is really interested in documenting human interfaces, that's a great place we could use some help. I think it'll be a little easier, like the task at hand will be easier if we have specific things, like this is what we need to add to that document, like we need to explain drop buttons and vertical tabs and stuff. And I don't think we have that fleshed out, so maybe that's also a good first step if somebody wants to think about all of the weird interaction elements we have in Backdrop and make a list of them. That would be a great first step to getting those actually documented. All right, well that's all we have for the agenda today. Does anyone have anything else fun to talk about? Questions?
I took a stab at the button versus link thing.
Great. That was fast.
That's all.
Is that this link, the Evernote?
Yeah, I just took a quick screenshot of it.
Looks good to me.
I think it makes sense to put more info by the info, right?
Yeah, and downloads by the downloads. Although we don't have those numbers yet. That's okay. Yeah. That's on the list. I like it.
We're getting there. Yeah.
Okay.
A little more subtle, right? I think those buttons were like really loud. So.
Yeah, this is better. And I like the column-y thing. That looks fantastic. Thank you, Darius.
Of course.
Nice to have you back.
Do what I can.
Andy says he just read this week about Flexbox has greater browser support than CSS border radius. What?
Whoa! What? It's on.
All right. Flexbox and core it is.
Yeah. We're in the future now.
Okay, I'm totally fine. So Wes also added a comment here saying that apparently there are front-end performance issues with rounded borders. That
Yeah.
seems a little strange, but whatever. I'm
Only in certain
also fine
browsers.
with not having very many rounded borders in that base theme, especially. Like, I feel like that's something that people will add for their own aesthetic, but it's not something that we need to use.
Yep.
We don't want to. All right. Anything else new and exciting? No? All right. Well, let's wrap up this meeting then. Thank you all for joining. Wes, thanks for your continued amazing work on the new front-end theme. And we will have a design meeting again in 2 weeks.
Cool.
Okay. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Later, yo.
Bye, guys.
Bye.